All right, so we are going to talk about your job, your job, and is that affecting your health? Could be positive, maybe negative. So we're just going to go over that. And, this is a big part of most people's lives. So it's really important to talk about. And it doesn't get talked about in the aspect of how it relates to health very often. So, welcome to the Take Your Health Back Now podcast. We are recording this on April 5th, 2024. If you're watching the replay, if you're here in the Facebook Live, feel free to comment and join in. I will keep an eye on that.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Yeah, this is a big one, and we see this all the time with our patients, with our clients. So if you are currently working with us, make sure that you are paying attention, because a lot of times this, or if you're not working with us, just anyone, but it's, you've got to pay attention to what is holding you back or what is adding to that total body burden. And a lot of times we talk about mindset and we talk about diet and we talk about the environment around you, but your job is part of your environment. And like Jenny said, you spend so many hours a day in your job, and the majority of people, I would say, it's actually affecting your health in a negative way.
Yes.
So, but it's something only you can address and you can think about. So we just want to go over all the things and kind of help you, really step back and look at where you are with your job and your career choice. And if it's good, that's amazing. If it's not, what you need to do for yourself, but it can really slow down your progress towards healing and health if it's not addressed. So we'll just kind of dive in as usual. I have a bullet point here. So just at the top, I've got your workplace can be toxic. So
yeah,
what came to mind to me, and Jenny is probably, you'll think of something different, but in my mind, I was thinking so many people, have toxic people that they work with.
right.
It's toxic relationship. It might be your boss. The setting, that's a huge one. The environmental load, so an EMF load, toxic cleaning supplies, sanitizing, what else? The indoor air quality is terrible. There's no ventilation.
Lighting
Is a big one.
right.
There's so many things in an environment if you're working outside of the home. If you're working inside the home, a lot of people since the whole pandemic have been working at home, but they're still in a toxic environment because you're having to be inside all day. You are sitting in front of a computer. I know a lot of people that will, like right now, I just have my little laptop right here. That's all I have. But I know a lot of people, if they're actually working at like a corporate job from home, they'll have two big monitors, they've got their printer, they've got their router, they've got all these things, probably your phone. Lots of people have on a smartwatch. There's all these EMF load electronics around you,
Right.
And just the fact that you're sitting all day, you're inside, whatever that might be. There's so many different jobs people have.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I think that everyone's environment is so different. So these are just kind of, those four legs of health we're always talking about. Look at each of those and where the toxins in each of those could be in your particular job. And I do feel like people who say, this is my job, tend to just kind of accept the environment, like they have no control over it. Whereas people who are like, I have a career, at least they have like a little bit more of a passion about it or a connection. They're doing something they really enjoy. Then they have a little bit more empowerment, it seems like, even if it's the same type of role. So that's kind of a mindset thing. Like if you really enjoy what you're doing, you know, you feel more empowered to make those changes and make your environment happier and better for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And then there's it, what we just talked about was a lot of like office corporate type jobs, but people who are, service industry, they're dealing with all those awful customer interactions like that. That
Right, yeah,
is a
that
huge negative
too.
mindset. And then people who are in more like, let's say like blue collar industries, you're building materials, those are all those toxins that you're breathing in. If you're in if you're sitting in machinery all day, you're just sitting there, repetitive, you're getting exposure. Again, there's so many toxins in every environment. Even if you're into like, what if you're outside all day, but you're doing lawn care? Wow, lots of chemicals.
Right.
So
Yeah,
there's always something. I don't think anyone can have like a completely toxin free environment all the time. But since you spend so much time working, most people, you really have to look at each of these things in your situation and see where you can improve it. Um, a lot of it is on the mindset side that people don't think about. So, like you said, coworkers, boss, do you actually enjoy what you're doing? Is it fulfilling? Customers that you have to deal with. Those are things like you have to make some big decisions if you want to change those.
right. And you know, people, when you look at centritarians, that we look at people that live over 100, and people always talk about what their life was like and what makes somebody be able to live over 100 as opposed to somebody else, die at 65.
Right.
And always, almost always across the board, almost everything is the same. And one of the things that are the same with all those people is they were happy. They had a really happy life, joyful life. Joy, we've talked about in our podcast with frequency before. Joy is the highest frequency. So they were joyful, but there are so many people that in their jobs, jobs, it brings them no joy. But also these people were living purposefully. They felt like they had a life of purpose. They had a purpose to live. And that's why a lot of people, when they retire, will die soon after, or start getting sick. Like their health starts declining, maybe not
Right.
die, but their health starts really going downhill because they don't feel like they have purpose.
Right.
So you have
Or
to,
connection to community. So
right,
if your workplace is the only place where you're socializing, and then you leave that, then you have no community. So a lot of those, like where you see communities where people live over 100, it's a lot of connection. Like there's a big social interaction, big family, generational connections where they have support and people around them that aren't necessarily just because of their work. You build friends at work and it's a nice social interaction, but unless you have something else in common or you talk to them outside of work, then it's not really, I don't know, I don't think it really fulfills that need.
right. Yeah. That's a big one, is the community.
Yeah.
And the purpose is a huge one. And just having passion. I mean, feeling passionate about what you're doing. Does your State Farm call center job bring you passion? I'm
Right.
sure for some people it does, but maybe not for everybody. So whatever you're doing, you want to have passion. You want to feel like it's purposeful. You want to feel like you're helping in some way. You're adding value.
Right. And if your like huge passion in life is not something that would be a job, like, I don't know, maybe your huge passion is dance and, you're just not going to be a professional dancer for whatever reason. So then, you want to make sure that the career you pick fulfills your passion. So if you can't do it as your career, make sure it's something that complements it. It gives you the time to do that. It supports you, financially and emotionally so that you can do your passions, not something that takes away from it.
Right. And that's another thing too, with money is a huge stressor for people. So in your job, are you making, first of all, are you making enough money that you feel like it is worth, like, is your value of what you feel like you're contributing. Are you making money that is comparable? That's a big thing
Right.
to think about, because there's so many people now that are making, like, okay, it's over minimum wage, but it's still, is that,
Minimum wage is not really a living wage.
well, and that's the thing. It's,
Yeah.
they're working so hard and spending most of their time doing this job that maybe they don't feel passionate about, and putting their all into it to keep their job. And then there's a lot of people that are having to work 2 jobs. That's another thing.
Yeah.
But hardly making anything for what the value of what you are and what you're contributing. So that's something to think about too.
Right. And that's a tough one because a lot of times people feel stuck. So that's part of mindset. Like it
Right.
can be scary to think, right now I'm just barely making enough. And if I try to look for a different job or, train for something I would be passionate about, like I don't feel like I can because then I'll get behind. So it's one of those things that you really have to um, put like your positive perspective mindset into it, see how you can build those changes, see how you community can support you. Can you change your living situation to be less expensive so that you can make those changes? And it's amazing, like if you're doing something that you're passionate about, or at least you feel valued in, um, everything else is a little bit more positive as well, and other things will open up. If you can't stand your job, you're barely making enough to get by, you're not going to move forward, you're not going to improve, your life isn't going to get better, you're going to be stuck in that really negative um, mindset, and it probably won't change.
Right. And it does kind of radiate out to everything.
Yeah.
I think because people feel they're not motivated because they're stuck on that gerbil wheel. And again, like you said, it comes down to mindset, whether you feel like you can get out of that situation or not. So
Right.
you have to know, first of all, that you are the creator of your whole life. It doesn't matter how hard it seems. If you feel like you are stuck and you need to get out, you can. There's always a way. You
Right.
can, but you do have to really think about
Right.
how.
And it might not be like, next month. You might have to build a 2-year plan. But if you don't put that goal out there, it's going to be 20 years of the same thing.
Right, it will never change.
No.
That's the whole, we talk about this a lot. This quote I heard yesterday, I mentioned it on our PHP call, but I've been thinking about it a lot. So it is, write it backwards, live or read it forwards. But it's kind of exactly what Jenny just said. So you have to have a goal, you have to have a plan, you have to have an idea, a dream even. But that would be the writing it backwards. So you've got this thing, you can see it. You've always wanted to have a nursery of native plants to your area that are all organically grown, and
That
we
was
have
very specific.
right. And then, okay, so you have the dream, so that's writing it backwards. Now what do you have to do to make that happen? And
Yes.
maybe you have to stay in that job that you have, that whatever it is, for the next 5 years. But at least you know what you want, and you
Right.
will feel passionate about that. Like when I decided I wanted to build Noah's tub, or I didn't even know it was Noah's tub at the time, the DIY dog wash, I had that little hiatus. I got really, like, at the time I was not in a good place, but once I got that idea in my head, I it made me in a much better place, and I felt very
Right.
passionate about that, and I had this vision, and then I spent a lot of time mapping it out and what it would be like, and this big dream. And then I had to figure out, well, okay, I have zero money, so how will I ever make that happen? Okay, well,
Right.
then try to figure that out. Then you start writing it backwards. That's the backwards part. And then when I was ready to do it, then I was ready to move forward. But it was over like a year, it took a long
Right.
time. And a lot of hardship, we talk about that a lot too. When
Yep.
you're going to make a big change, even if it's something like that, you can go through a hard time, but then the value of what you get out of it is so much bigger.
Right. Sometimes you have to sacrifice. Sometimes it's uncomfortable. Those things are normal. But if you have your plan and you have a passion and you can see that positive goal, then that can kind of sustain you through that. And while you're building that, or while take classes or get a preventative health practitioner certification, you can take your current environment and just make sure it's as positive as possible. So like those things we were telling you to look into. So you have control over your immediate space. Look at the electronics. What can you do without? What can you turn off? What can you bring in? Air purifiers, plants, can you be at least near a window, take breaks where you're walking, get outside, things like that really improve your working environment until you can be in control of the whole thing.
Right. And also take, whatever your job is, if you are in an environment, like I know we've worked with people before that were corporate. There's a lot of corporate people here that we work with because of State Farm, but they are sedentary hours and hours all day long. They are not moving, and you have to be moving. You have to be moving your body, for your muscles, for your bones, that helps with your mindset. It helps get your lymphatic system going. There's so many reasons why you literally have to have movement in your life, right? But they're sitting sedentary, and I know a lot of them, we're worried about VOCs and environmental toxins and things like that, but they're not allowed to bring in an
Right.
air. And there's not really any much EMF remediation they can do, and they're kind of at the mercy of all the other little cubicles around them. So if you you can always do something, but if there is not that much you can do, or you feel like it's not enough, that's when you really think about, okay, is it worth risking my health for this, or do I have to think outside the box to find something else? Another thing that people do that keeps them in a job, I guess, is they're working for insurance and retirement, and
Right.
so,
Not for insurance, because we keep talking about State Farm, but like to
well, no,
have insurance coverage. Yeah.
the thing is, insurance is there so that it can pay your bills when you're unhealthy. I mean, it's good to have, of course, but when you're really going to use it is when you're unhealthy, and when you're unhealthy, it's because you're in this position in the first place.
Right.
So that's something to think about. And then I know so many people that just work and work and work and work their whole lives to retire, with the idea that when they retire, then they're going to do all these things they've always wanted to do. So that's when they'll become this dancer and do the dancing. Like that's
Right.
when they go on vacations, and that's when they can spend time with their family. But a lot of times, like for instance, our father-in-law, that was his plan. He never spent any money. He worked. He had this vision of as soon as he retired, he was going to do all these things. He died right before he retired.
Right.
So you only get the moment you're in.
Yeah.
That's something to think about. You can't focus on the past. That's not healthy. You also can't, I mean, you have to have a goal. You have to have a destination, but you can't put all your focus on the future.
No, you have to be, healthy and mentally healthy, physically healthy, enjoying your life in the moment. Because if you're not, even if you don't, even if you make it to retirement, you may be in such ill health or such a bad mindset by that point that you're not going to enjoy it. You're not going to have any money if you're spending it all on medical bills, and you might not feel well enough to go do those things. If you do those things, you might not enjoy them anymore because your life is kind of taken all of that out of you. So if you put yourself in a situation where you're miserable and unhealthy for years and years and years, you're not going to magically, you know, be that young, youthful person just because you're retired. Like you have to work on that your whole life in order to sustain it.
Right. And I was just thinking while you were talking, this is kind of off the subject, but uh, we clearly are more of an entrepreneurial spirit, and what we teach, our certification program, and what we do is where we have a lot of freedom. We have freedom of time, we have freedom of our decisions, we have freedom of how much money we're making, we have creativity, we have full control over what we're doing. But the one thing that when you are doing something like this, that can also be very stressful for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Because it is all on you. Like it's all on you,
Right.
so for some people that are maybe having their own business, whatever that business might be, it might be very stressful for them because they actually have to go out and find customers. They have to,
You have to do all of the things. There's not really, set time off. That's, I know a lot of people that are like that. They don't want to be in charge of all that. They enjoy going to work, doing what they are supposed to do, fulfilling that need. They feel accomplished and then being able to turn it off and go home. And then that's their time. So it's okay to not want to be an entrepreneur.
we talk a
Yeah.
lot about other jobs,
Yeah.
but there are plenty of people that would not like this lifestyle that we personally lead.
Yeah.
So that's another thing. If you're trying to have your own business and it's so stressful for you, like Jenny said, it's okay to then have something else,
Right.
have somebody else be in charge. That's okay. But the point is, you need to feel good about it. You need
Yes.
to be able to have the time and the financial freedom and things like that to really pursue what you want. So again, wherever you are in your own life, it affects it. And we talk about all the time that everyone is on this journey. It's personal to you. There's a million different scenarios, and even with all those different scenarios, it's still personal to you because whatever is in your life affecting you. But that's again where you have to take the time. And here's another thing with your job, do you even have the time to sit with yourself and think about these things? Because you really have to be able to. And there's so many people that put so much time into their job that they don't even have it in them later to sit with themselves and see what they want. And another job is being a parent. I mean, think of all the people that like stay at home moms or stay at home dads, and that's all they do. That is a full-time job.
Yeah.
And, do you have to figure out a time when, again, you have that little bit of time you can sit with yourself so that you can take time for you and really think about what you need and what works for you. Otherwise, all of these stressors, no matter what it is just coming in and adding to that total body burden.
Yes.
And one of the big reasons why we talk about jobs a lot is because we see it all the time with people we work with, where they're, making progress, but their job, whatever it is really slows them down. It's almost like you're making the progress, you're going forward, but that job is like two ropes, pulling you back, and you're okay. Here's another one of my analogies. I was just thinking like a sled dog, like your
Yeah.
sled dog is going forward, but you have that weight behind you, or like a horse with a plow, you've got that pulling back on you. But it really can add to that whole threshold bucket that we talk about
Yeah.
all the time. And if you follow us a lot, I'm sure you've heard us talk about this, but it was such a significant visual for us during the COVID thing when everyone was locked down and everyone had to stay home, how fast people healed.
Yeah.
And then they went back to their job and everything came back very quickly.
Yeah.
A big one
And
that
it's
Oh, go ahead.
It's just one of those topics that people don't think about. Like,
Right.
if they're not healthy, they don't tie it to the stress and the toxins and the time at work. So then when we bring it up to people, a lot of times they have a hard time believing that connection. So then when we did, it was like such hard proof when people couldn't go to work and they were able to make improvements quicker. And then when they did go back to work, they saw things go back. Those people, it was really easy to say, well, what changed? Here it is. Now, what can you do to change that work situation? And I feel like those people listened a lot more. We've had people that just refused to make any changes with their career, with their job. Um, and it stopped them from getting all the way to where they needed to be. And we can't make those changes for people. But we've seen both things happen.
Right. And some examples of what we've worked with, people that we've worked with and types of jobs that really we can see are making a huge difference. Teachers,
Yeah.
that's a big one, because the school environment is very toxic, unfortunately. You've got the EMF load in schools is really high, toxic, all kinds of things. You've got the teacher's lounge with all the food. That's a problem for a lot of people. You're not outside all day long except for recess, and a lot of times that's stressful.
Right. And depending on what grade you're teaching, you might not get that either with the higher grades. And for whatever reason, teaching, it's like you either have a really good community of other teachers that support you, or it's terrible. Like it is very like judgy and clicky, and there's just lots of relationship issues, like, and you're not getting paid very much, so there's a stress you might need a second job just to support yourself. A lot of people felt like they were going into that profession for a passion and they love to teach and make a difference, and then there's so much other stuff that comes along with it that they can't even make a difference, and they're stressed out and they're not making enough financially. So it is a really almost always stressful, toxic job.
Right. And then nursing, that's a big one too. We see a lot of nurses. We work with a lot of nurses because, again, hospital is a very stressful place. It's toxic. And both schools and nurses or hospitals are so sanitized, so much sanitizing going on all the time, that really affects your health and your microbiome, and so much bad about that. But also with hospitals, a lot of times with nurses, they're working 12-hour shifts, or you've got people working, third shift, strange hours. You're working with people that are not happy. Your emergency room nurse, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. Or, there's so much that can add to your body burden. Banks, I broke my necklace, or my grandson broke my necklace the other day, and I had to run into the jewelry store and so I could have it fixed. And just standing there, I bet I was in there maybe 5 minutes, probably less actually. But the lighting, they had can lighting, but it was like 1, 2, 3, 4. It was real close together, and then they had 3 LED lights in every can light. But the lighting was so abrasive. I couldn't believe how bad it made me feel, and it was just standing under it. So I was thinking,
Yeah.
these people that work in that all day long.
And there's so many studies about that, about the frequency of light that you're in, how your body actually is aware of like the sunset and the sunrise and that natural wavelength, and that actually gets your sleep patterns, back in place. And if you are in that artificial light all the time, your body biologically gets really off balance. It's not just like ew, I look bad in the lighting. That's not, that's not what we're talking about. Plus, most of the light bulbs now have huge EMF loads. So you're dealing with that too. So it's just being stuck in those very artificial, closed in environments are terrible, terrible for you.
Right. So here's a good example of lighting. So if you have natural lighting, like you're outside, clearly that is natural lighting, or even incandescent lighting, full spectrum, it's more like you're listening to a symphony and everything is in tune and the instruments sound lovely. Even if there's warming up, it sounds nice. But when you're under, and it's not just lighting, it's other things to do with EMFs, but it's more like every single instrument in that symphony is completely out of tune and everybody's playing something different at the same time. And think how abrasive that would be to your ears.
Right.
It's unnatural. It doesn't make you feel good. It's like fingers on a chalkboard for your body.
Yes, yes. It's not the sound, but it is the wavelength, the frequency, the energy. And it's like people have a hard time sometimes visualizing it. So think of a tuning fork, right? So like you hit that and then things they tune in, they become the same frequency. Your body does that to the energy around it, and the wavelengths and the frequencies and all of it. So if you're tuning yourself to all of this artificial, that's how your body's gonna feel.
Right. Yeah. And it's just so unhealthy for you. And the artificial lighting, that's in hospitals, that's in schools, that's in retail, that's in just about everywhere, that you don't have control over. Also, I've seen people, like I have a few chiropractor friends I have that have moved to new locations. I'm just using them as an example, but this could be anyone. But all of the toxic materials that go into building out a new space.
Yeah.
It's cool that they're growing and going to a new space. And I know they're very passionate about what they do. All of that's good. But now you're in this new space and now you have this new carpet with this adhesive backing. You've got all these fluorescent lights. You've got like everything's new in there. And again, you're inside, it's enclosed. So, that's just another example. There's so many examples.
Yeah.
So again, you just have to think about what it is with your job. Another thing that I don't think we mentioned was hours that people put in.
Yeah.
And commutes. There's so many people that, commute in their car hours a day or just sitting in traffic.
Right.
That can be so stressful. There's just a million. Or like the truck driver we were talking about last week in our podcast, that's long distance truck driver. He's sitting all that time.
Yeah. And all those diesel fumes.
Right. Diesel fumes, whatever it is. But again, just take stock and really understand that your job is affecting your life, your health, either positively or negatively. And if you really want to get healthy and you understand that it is not adding to your health, then the only way that you're going to ever get healthier is to address that.
Right. And address that means make some changes. You can get a new job or change, if you don't have control over anything in your job environment, then you need to look for a new job. If you have control and you enjoy what you do and you feel fulfilled, then you have to, be empowered to make those changes in that environment. And if you can't, then, you don't necessarily have to change careers, but look into the same type of position in a better environment. It might seem weird, but if you're putting yourself out there and you're looking for a new position, go into the space you're going to be in, see what it's like, ask about, where you will be working, things like that. It's kind of crazy because you think about who gets the big corner office with all of the windows. It's the person doing the best, right? Because that's a better environment. Like clearly understand that that's healthier and makes you happier because we put this high value on it, but we don't necessarily connect it to ourselves in our everyday
Right. And I
job.
was thinking while you were talking, so another really toxic job is a hairstylist.
Yeah.
And I was a hairstylist decades ago when I first decided I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I did that for a while, but that could be a super toxic job.
Yeah.
And that was one of the ones that we saw that completely their health turned around for the negative during the lockdown. When she went back, boom, everything came back. But that's one of those things. It doesn't have to be toxic. Maybe you
Right.
love doing hair. I know a lot of people that love doing hair. They love that. They get to talk to people. They get to be creative. Nothing is ever the same. It's a fine career, but maybe think outside the box. So maybe if you have your own space, maybe you just do cuts.
Right.
Maybe you don't have anyone doing nails in your salon because the nail products are terrible. Or maybe you do have nails, but you're using a non-toxic,
Right.
nail polish, or you have a good ventilation system, good air filter in there, or you're using a fairly non-toxic hair color if you're doing color, but you can make changes.
Yeah.
And maybe, that would be if you had your own business. If you don't have your own business, maybe talk to the person that.
Right. Or like I said, look to work where someone else has put that in place. And it might mean moving, it might mean taking a pay cut. There's going to be pros and cons to every change. And you have to put your health as like the biggest pro. It has to be up there. And people just don't even put it in their list when they're looking at careers or a new job. They don't, it doesn't matter.
Right. Oh, I was going to tell this quote that I heard today. Hold on. Where is it? I don't know where it went. I just read it to Jenny.
It
That's
was
weird.
something like, don't spend your,
Oh, here it is. I found it. It's too many people spend their health. Yeah, too many people spend their health to gain wealth. So that would be sacrificing yourself for a job.
right.
And then until they retire, and then they end up spending their wealth to regain their health. So I think the idea was that so many people work their whole lives, and by the time they retire, now they've got all these aches and pains, and you're on a couple prescription medications, and you've got these issues. So now you're spending all that money to do these surgeries, and now you're in the conventional cycle, that kind of thing. So don't waste your whole life. And then they said, just remember that money does you no good if you can't enjoy it. So I like that. That was good.
I think that you have to, just like we talk about with our system and our programs that we teach, you have to look at everything. Your career is a big part of your life. You have to look at it holistically, what it gives back to you, what it might take away from you. And you have to put those things all into the picture and not just how much money am I making.
Right. And also I think another thing that kind of holds people back is they feel like they shouldn't be thinking about how much money they're making. Like it's almost a bad thing.
Yeah.
Make a lot of money, but if you think about it, think about what you can do if you were making a lot of money. Like, what do you want to do? What do you want to do for your family? What do you want to do to help other people? I'm always seeing things that I'm like, oh, I could do this. Or, I was looking at dogs today and thinking the rescues, if you had the money, think what you could do. Or, whatever it is in your mind. A lot of times people's passion or their purpose is helping other people that are less fortunate, or,
Right.
philanthropy type things. If you are making the money, then you have the money to put there,
Right.
if that's your purpose and your passion. So think about that too, because I do think that's a big block
Yeah,
for,
ask for what you're worth. Don't put stuff, don't put everything out there and then just accept what was given if it's not your value. Understand your value and expect to be compensated for it. It's not greedy, it's not, you're not a terrible person for wanting to make money. You just cannot make the money itself your only goal without considering everything else.
right. And clearly you need to, it's that value thing.
Yes.
So if you're, like Jenny said, you need to be putting in the value in order to get the value out. It's not like you can just show up and, you know, sit back in your chair and have a drink and not do any work and then expect somebody to pay you a lot of money
Yeah.
or
I mean, we'd all be terribly happy if that was true.
right. It doesn't work that way. But yeah, there has to be an exchange for value and value. It has to be equal, balanced, you know. Anyway, we're kind of getting off track, but that is a huge piece of it. So make sure you think about that. But if you are, we'll just plug our PHP program real quick, but it's big. So if you feel passionate about helping other people like we do, and you see the value of a system that all you have to do is learn and then help other people, this might be a really good thing for you. Or not just our program, but there's lots of other things out there that you could do that you feel passionate about, and then learn that and then go out and help other people.
Yeah, that is one good thing about all of the technology
Right.
that we have access to. It does really allow, or has allowed people to um, really move forward, like with service, like to be of service to other people, because you can connect to people so much easier now. You can put yourself out there and to be of service to other people in so many ways. Like if you have uh, expertise and passion in an area, you can teach other people. If you don't want to come up with all of that by yourself, you can definitely learn that from someone else, like our program does. And then you can go out and do that. So I think that where we're at right now, technologically, it is really great that people can make that jump to being in control of their career, their job, their environment, all of that. Where, 100 years ago, there weren't that many options for what you were going to do to earn an income.
Right.
So,
Like when I was, say, in high school, it was, all right, what are you going to do? You're going to be a teacher, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, maybe psychologist, something like that. But they were just like the main things that people went to school for, and that was just what you thought. But now, like Jenny said, you can really think about your passion and what you want to do, and then again write it backwards, then think about what you have to do if you have to learn a program, whatever it is. But right now, conventional medicine is crumbling, it's losing people's faith in it. The school system is a problem for so many people now. So I mean, maybe you find a group of people that want to homeschool, and you're a teacher, and now you can actually
right.
start your own school or group, or the coaching industry, no matter what it is, whether it's health coaches, whether it's life coach, like any kind of coaching you can imagine. Now people are just making stuff up, but people want that, because what people want is somebody to help them and give them support and accountability and a plan.
Right.
So
It saves so much time. If you can have a mentor, a guide who has already learned something to the expert level and they know how to replicate that, it saves you as a client so much time, effort, and money to, you know, hire that service to then help you get to that point. Like it makes so much sense.
right. So, or like, say a nurse. I know there's a lot of nurses that are going more into a coaching business.
Yeah.
So they're still in their passion of helping people, but they're coming from a different angle, so they can get out of that hospital setting, or they can get out of,
Yes.
you know, whatever that is, or
They have like nurses is a big one where they don't feel like they have that final say. Like they might know what that person needs to get better, and they're not allowed to do that for the person because they're not the doctor, the head person in charge. So they're really, a lot of nurses get, I don't know the word for it, like downtrodden because they can see what needs to be done and they don't have that control over doing that. So that's a huge, I think, reason why nurses are leaving those big institutionalized jobs and going more into like personalized health coaching.
or even doctors too,
Yeah,
because the
doctors.
doctors used to be in private practice where they had control and they, could do what they wanted. They were really passionate about what they were doing. But now doctors work for these hospitals, these big
Or
corporate,
these giant groups. Yeah.
right? Where they don't, you may think that your doctor has his own practice, but the majority, almost 100% of doctors work for some other big corporation where they don't have
Which
their,
means they have to listen to these rules being put
right,
down without like, you can only spend this much time on people. You can only offer XYZ solutions. Like they're no longer in charge of the plan of care.
right. But I do feel like we're at a really pivotal time, on so many levels. But jobs are a big one because there's so many in corporate jobs, all of these things, it's going to be shifting, or it is shifting. It's kind of in flux now. So now is a great time to be just getting super creative, thinking outside the box, even if you stay in your own career. But what can you do to shift that? And you can literally right now make stuff up. I mean, it sounds bad, but
Right.
be creative.
Not like, trying to trick people into this magic bullet pill or
No, no, no.
lotion. But, if you really have a passion about something and you develop it, maybe that's a better word.
Oh, yeah.
Develop a system to teach other people. There is someone else out there that wants to do that. There's this person that I've seen that they must come up on my social media or something, and it's literally just teaching people how to crochet cat things, like shaped like cats, cat toys, cats on them. Like that's all it is. That's what they teach. And there's a huge audience for that. It is amazing.
And that's just something that you wouldn't know how to do on your own, or even
No.
we didn't even touch on like plumbers, electricians,
Yeah.
carpenters, people like that. Now that is a huge demand. And when I was going to school, it was kind of thought of as, well, you know
Like lesser.
lesser, kind of like what you're saying with the nurses. But it is huge. People in those industries can charge top dollar right now because they are in demand, because there aren't very many people that know how to do that. And
Right.
used to
And
be
if
that
you
people knew
like
how to
to,
do that on their own, but now
right.
people,
If you like to create or build or do things with your hands, that's you train to be into those labor type jobs, and you can then decide where you want to do them. Where do you want to work? There's all of this opportunity, so you have more control over just, oh well, if I go to school to be a doctor, there's not that many options. If you really think about what you enjoy doing, there is something out there in that area that you can do, that you can have control over a lot of, um, all these environmental factors that we're talking about.
right? So the big takeaway from this is find the time to sit with yourself and really evaluate where you are with your job, and really be honest with yourself if you feel like it's affecting your health negatively, and what you can do about it. And then do remember that quote about write it backwards, read it forward. So think about what you can do, and start with your passion and what you feel passionate about and what brings purpose to your life. And really, if you're just, it could be anything. It could be the dancing thing, and maybe you say, well, I'm too old. What would I do? But I'm sure there's something you could do with it if that's what you really feel passionate about. You just have to be creative. So writing these things down, remember, words are powerful. The written word is powerful. So writing these just ideas. I mean, you can just be jotting down ideas, and it's amazing if you just clear your mind, sit with yourself, write these down. You can even write them down and like doodle, like color, something that settles your mind and kind of clears your mind. You'd be amazed at what will drop in, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, this is a great idea. So that's a good place to start.
Right.
And then the next step is to figure out what you need to do to make that happen.
Yes. And if you really enjoy the career that you've chosen for yourself, still sit and think about where you're at in your job, in your career, and what pieces and parts may be negatively impacting you and what are positively impacting you, and how you can change that balance. So be more positive impact holistically. So just because you really enjoy what you do doesn't mean that your whole work environment is positive. Um, and I feel like that if you really like what you do, you're probably not going to sit and think about how to make it better because you're like, oh, I like what I do. But like we've talked about, all of these areas, environmental toxins, mindset, movement, um, diet, that's a big one. With people go to work and they just eat junk food or they order out, like you can make big changes in your day-to-day activities if you enjoy your job. Still
Right.
can make
And the
changes.
other thing too is if you enjoy your job and where you work, address like all the things that we went over with the environment. And then if you see things that are affecting your health, they're also affecting other people's health.
Right.
So maybe if you can go to your boss or whatever, maybe the owner of your company, whatever it is, and say, hey, I've learned that these things affect health. Here's a better idea. Maybe will we be able to switch this for this, or maybe
Right.
switch out these cleaning supplies for these non-toxic cleaning supplies, or whatever it is, because it's not only going to affect your health in a positive way, but also everyone you work with.
Right.
And if you have a toxic coworker, but you love your job and you love where you work and you have no desire to change that at all, but if you have a toxic person you're working with, you need to address that.
Yeah.
So that's hard, but you need to
set boundaries.
Yeah, you've got to, wherever you see those negative factors coming in, whatever it is, you have to address it some in order to really keep moving forward in your health. So hopefully this helped. It's a lot.
Yes, hopefully this made you go, this is really one of those topics that people don't think about unless they're prompted to. So hopefully this has prompted you to put some deep thought into your life.
Yes. So see you in the next one.
Yes. And of course, if you know someone who is in a terrible toxic environment in their job, maybe share this with them.
Right.
We always appreciate that. Wherever you are watching, subscribe, like, that helps us out, helps us get this information out there to as many people as we can, which is our ultimate goal.
Yeah. So have a great week, everybody.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.